with understanding this, so people aren't thinking, okay, I'm made up of hundreds of trillions of cells, and those cells are made up of hundreds of trillions potentially of atoms and all these different things and particles and all this stuff, and it's all coordinated and working together.
Exactly.
So what are we, and how do we?
So you can get some. I speak French a lot these days, so I lose my English word. I'm sorry, but
it's okay.
You can get some hints about what's happening. See, in biology, for instance, there is no solid explanation on how cell differentiation happens. Like, how does cell know what to do, right? You start with one cell, right? You get a sperm that enters an egg, and then next thing you know, the thing starts to blossom.
Right.
It's making cell like...
How does it know what to do?
Yeah. Like a bat out of hell, it's making cell.
How does it know that?
Yeah, and it knows what to do because it starts making brain cells and heart cells and liver cells, and it's doing its thing. There's nobody there, right? There's no environmental information in, like, if you just took like the fluids of the amniotic fluids and so on. There's no information there that would say, like, oh, you got to make a heart now, you got to make a brain now, and not only that, is like every second of your life, you're continuing to remake yourself. So that only in a few months, you're not the same guy. You're not the same girl, you're not the same guy. You've remade yourself. You've completely remade yourself. And you've remade it in a very specific way because you and I, we don't look the same.
Right.
Right? So you're getting a set of information that's different than mine.
Yes.
Okay? Because you're not making the same set of arrangements, right? And
same functions, but not the same set.
Exactly.
We can walk and we can talk. We have arms. We can pump blood.
Exactly.
We can see.
The basic principles are the same, right? But the details are different.
Right.
And it's the same thing. It's the same thing with every tree on the planet. It's the same thing with every blade of grass on the planet. It's the same with everything, right? And so you have this really highly complex system that is completely functioning as one very highly advanced, if you'd like, organism, right? Whether you're talking about the whole planet or you're talking about one human being or one animal or one blade of grass.
Right.
And in physics, we're told that all this happened under random function.
That's what it said in physics. Yeah.
And in biology.
It's all random.
It's all random.
Accidental that we got here.
Exactly. Early on, physics and biology, and I was studying biophysics and all this stuff, they kept on saying is mathematical fluctuation. And it's like basically saying it's a fluke, right? But if you do fluke calculations on that, you don't get even one microbe. Since the beginning of what we can see seemed to be the beginning of time for our evolution, okay?
Yep.
We don't have enough time to make one monocellular cell, okay? Like the probability of, all the right elements coming together, and I've made those calculations and they're published, okay, is 10 to the 9, I think it was 1 to 10 to the 5,996 or something.
Okay.
Okay? I mean, it's ridiculously large number. Okay? if you don't understand exponentials, oh no, it was 8,896, right?
Okay.
10 to the 8,896, right? So if you don't understand exponentials, you might have noticed in your bank account, I mean, when you add zeros, it changed fast, right?
Yeah.
So those are the number of zeros after the one, right? So there's like 8,000,
Right.
890.
That's a lot.
It's a lot of zeros. Because when you get in the high numbers, every time you add a zero, it's a big change,
lot
right?
more.
It's
Yeah,
exponential. And so this, like to give you an idea, the size of the universe is big. Okay, the sun is not even visible in our galaxy because it's too small. Okay, the Earth is like a piece of sand beside the sun, right? So it's way small. Just to give you an idea of size, the universe is huge, right? It's incredibly huge, hard to fathom how big it is. Okay, well, in centimeters, which is small, the universe has a radius approximately 10 to the 28. Okay? In centimeters.
Right.
Okay, so 10 to the 28 is already a huge number.
Right.
10 to the 8,000, no matter what comes after the 8,000, like it's
Huge.
insane.
Right.
That's the probability that the correct elements for monocellular life, the basis, what would be needed for monocellular life, would emerge. And then if you were out of luck, it would somehow miraculously happen, okay? And a rock would fall and squish it.
Okay.
And then you'd have another trillions of
Sure,
years
sure.
before it could happen again.
So
the fact,
right.
the probability that it's random is basically zero.
So with all this information, and that's just scratching the surface of, I'm sure, what you could share with us. With all of that information to set the context,
Right.
what do we need to know and do to support us in creating, attracting, or manifesting more of what we want in this dimension?
Well, I was getting to that.
Yeah.
So that gives you a hint.
Yes.
Okay, if it's not random, okay, so why is the scientific community insisting that it's random? Because science was devised as a way to get away from religion. So if it's not random, then it's the biggest fear of any scientist is that somebody's going to say the word God, right? So somebody's going to say, oh, well, it's because it's God that's taking care of organizing everything, right? Well, there's another alternative.
What's that?
Okay, it's called feedback. The system is learning about itself. There's feedback of information. When you have feedback in an equation, the equation can produce massive amount of complexity in a very little amount of time. And those equations are, fractal equations that are, like beautiful, but as well that produce geometry that we see in nature everywhere.
Yes.
So that's another hint. Wow, you got an equation here that has feedback in it, right? It's called recursiveness. So you take the answer and you feed it back, and you take the answer and you feed it back, right? That produces huge amount of complexity from a simple set of information. And when you look at nature, you see that feedback happening in front of your eyes, meaning you look at the branches of a tree, you look like the rendering for worlds, in Hollywood, when they render worlds, like Avatar and all this stuff. When they do that stuff, they use engines that are running fractals because they mimic nature. They get very close to nature.
Sure.
So now you get a sense, wait, there's a feedback of information in this universe. It's not all random. It's not all isolated. There's information going out. There's information going in. Look at all of nature. Everything is adapting based on what it's getting,
The environment.
the environment. Exactly. So it's not far from current theory, what I'm telling you. It's very much aligned with current theory.
Right.
It's just not been understood in physics appropriately, not clearly. It's about to be. I'm about to publish a paper that does the job, nail in the coffin, but I mean, I should not use that expression. It's kind of macabre,
Right.
But basically, does the job.
Sure.
But so basically, you realize. I know it's a long journey I took you on there to
I like
answer
it.
your question.
I like it though.
I'm
We got to
sorry.
set the context.
Yeah. But you ask a deep question.
Yes.
And so I'm giving you an answer commensurate with the question because it's, it requires some thinking. But so all of a sudden you realize there's feedback. And you see it in your life all the time, right? You adapt to what's happening. It's cold outside, you put a coat on, right? Like it's hot, you take stuff off. Like your interaction with your friends, your partners, it's all relationships. And so you start to realize, wait, the whole thing is a relationship.
The universe, life, existence, consciousness, all of it.
Is a relationship of everything talking to itself, talking, to each other, which is itself, because it's a universe, right? The idea that you can, for instance, investigate the universe, which you're in, without investigating yourself is thus flawed.
Can you say that one more time?
The concept that you can investigate the universe, which you're in, without investigating yourself is flawed.
So what is the simple path to manifesting?
You have to understand that deeper you go inside yourself, larger influence you have on the universe.
Where should we be going inside of ourselves? What questions should we be asking? Should we be looking at? How should we...
Even just a simple awareness, like taking a simple moment in your day to be aware of your biology, for instance. Like to become aware, and this is why masters have come throughout the ages and told us, concentrate on your breathing, concentrate on, meditate, take time, even if it's 5 minutes during the day to go inside, shut out the outside world and go into that 99.9999999% space, which is inside of you, which is full of energy. It's full.
So empty space, but full of energy.
It's not empty.
Right.
It's space without the empty in front of it.
Right.
So it's full space.
Full space.
Yeah. Plenium. Right? So inside of you.
And when you're going inside of you,
right.
Let's just close your eyes and you're thinking inside of you, where is the inside of your mind? Is it in your body? Is it in your consciousness? Where are you going?
Right.
With your thinking and your consciousness.
Okay, so now you're getting to the point where you're wanting to go to consciousness. But let's do that.
Okay, go ahead.
But you have to follow the equations to understand. Otherwise you're lost again.
Okay.
Right? So you want to know, where am I going? What am I? Right? Well, first of all, now you've defined yourself a little differently. You're an oscillating body. You're an oscillating structure of space-time. You're at the quantum scale. You're making boundaries. You've made boundaries, and you're replacing those. It's not a static thing. It's happening, right? It's constantly happening. And you're burning carnally. You're burning thermodynamically and all this. And you're starting to get the sense that you're interacting with a field. Okay? So
the inner field and the external field.
Yeah, well, it's unclear. Remember, you can't you can't separate.
Because we're all inside the universe.
Yes, exactly. So you can't isolate. You're not isolated. You're exchanging across boundaries. There's an exchange that's happening. So you say, okay, so let's think of it in physics a little bit. You're an oscillating crystal, like that crystal radio. And you're tuned to a very specific frequency
Yes.
in this field. You're making very specific waveforms. Even if I was resonance equations are based on your physical nature. Even if I was trying to find the fundamental resonance of you, it wouldn't be the same as me, as him. Nobody would have the same fundamental resonance because we're all made differently.
Yes.
So you can think of yourself all of a sudden as a little bit as like an antenna, right?
Yes. This body
is like the oscillating crystal antenna, and a transceiver. It receives and transmits.
Receives and transmits. Okay.
Right? It's not just a receiver. It's not just an emitter, but it receives and transmits. Right? So it's a transceiver. Right? And so it's tuned to a very specific frequency, and that frequency is not as solid. It's varying, right? It varies with your heartbeat, with your breath, with all the fluids that are going through your vein. It's like all the fluids that are going up and down your spine, the fluids that are moving in your brain.
So it's tuning into a frequency based on the information you're giving it.
Right.
Is that right? So based on thoughts, feeling, breath.
Exactly.
What's happening, how much energy you're creating internally and physically, it's tuning into different frequencies.
Right. And these biorhythms, what influence them the most? The biorhythms of your body.
Thinking
a
your
little
emotions.
bit. Right. Your state of emotional
your way of being.
Your way of being.
Yes.
Your thoughts.
But your thoughts influence your emotions.
Of course. And your emotions influence your thoughts.
Which ones influence more?
I would say your emotions.
Your emotions influence more your thoughts.
Yes.
So you shift your emotions, shift your thoughts.
You shift your thoughts. This
And
is what
thing.
all the masters have been saying throughout the ages. Nothing different.
Right.
They just didn't have the physics. They couldn't write it in Greek for
It
you.
was spiritual, philosophical modalities.
Modalities, and it was extrapolated to the material world, as in that's how the world works, but without the
physics, the
math, the understanding of how is that true? Like many masters, for instance, said everything is one, but they're like, how is that true? Okay, well, this equation tells you, but never mind that.
Okay, so your thoughts and your feelings influence your frequency.
Right.
In the field.
Exactly. And the field influence your thoughts
and your feelings.
And your feelings.
Your perception of what's happening.
Exactly.
Your interpretation.
Your interpretation. So you're getting feedback. Like you have little black holes in your eyes that are sucking up photons, right? And shifting them into your brain.
Yes.
And, there's all kinds of sensory system. There's all kinds of things that are happening that you're interpreting and that is modifying your thoughts and your feelings.
Right.
And then as you modify those thoughts, you act on those. So now you're radiating into the field, right, by acting on those. So to answer your question, is moving or thinking more important? Kind of goes together.
Sure.
And then, so when you're influencing the field, then the field feeds back to you, right? You put your hand on the stove, it's hot, you'll realize
feedback.
Not a good idea. Fair enough. The first step would be like, well, let's try to figure out what the material world is made of before we add the complexity. It's called a hard problem in physics, the hard problem of consciousness, right? So, acceptable path